Welcome back to the psychology of losing. This is a mini series for retail traders out there, helping them to deal with the inevitable losses they're going to face in the markets. Now, in this particular episode of the mini series, this is episode number 2. So if you haven't already watched number 1, go into the playlist and check out number 1. But in this particular episode, we are going to be delving into and talking about the subconscious mind and how that impacts our perception to losses, and what actually happens, and how traders are programmed from a very young age to see losing as bad, winning as good, and how this inevitably affects their trading results and their trading decisions in the day-to-day markets. Now, this is going to be a very mind-expanding episode in the mini-series. I'm going to be sharing a lot, and we're just going to continue to build on top of these principles to ensure by the end of the mini-series you have an incredible understanding of losing, and you know how to deal with it, and you know how to manage it. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Bailouni, and welcome to the channel. I run an education and performance coaching business called Master Your Trading Mindset, and we help traders break through the psychological patterns that hold them back from consistency and funding. Now, we have our free Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, which is a completely free tool that helps traders gain more consistency in the market and ultimately puts the foundational steps in place to helping them be less emotional, more consistent, and ultimately get that funding. I only let out 30 copies of this a week because I follow up every single person to ensure they're getting value. If you don't already have your copy of the tool, jump in the description and claim it right now. It will be of value to you in your trading journey. Now, when we talk about the psychology of losing and we talk about the subconscious mind, it's really important to recognize that 99.999% of traders are going to be programmed from a very young age to see losing as bad. Now, this usually happens in our upbringing. Maybe some of you guys and girls played sport, and in a very common scenario, if you won in a sporting game and you did really well, maybe you came first or second, you get rewarded for that. People praise you, and you get to, in your mind, associate pleasure, praise, success, all the positive emotions, all the positive feelings, and this release of dopamine from a biochemistry standpoint to winning. And in our mind, we associate winning equals good. And that's a programming we have. That's an association we have in our brain. In contrast to that, we can also lose in sports and we can do not so well. And people come up to us and say bad luck, and we get punished, and we have to work harder, we have to train harder. And losing has a very negative connotation in society, especially in sports and schooling and upbringing and all that type of stuff. So in our brain, we associate negative, bad, all these negative pain substances from a biochemistry standpoint to losing. And that's an association we have in our mind. Now, if we're bringing these imbalanced associations from usually upbringing, usually sport, usually schooling, into our trading, and we see losing as bad and negative, and we see winning as good and positive, we're putting ourselves at a serious disadvantage to be successful traders. And the reason I say this is because, like I mentioned in the last episode in the mini-series, losing is an inevitable part of a trader's journey. Nobody knows what the outcome of the next position is going to be, so we need to be able to transcend the judgments on the outcome, on winning and losing, to be successful traders. But if we're still stuck in this dynamic in our subconscious mind, it's not even a conscious thing, it's a subconscious thing, that losing is bad and winning is good, that's going to taint our decision making and expectations before we even know it. Okay. So what actually happens is any incomplete awareness, right, more positive than negative or more negative than positive, gets stored in our subconscious mind, and it's a survival instinct because what actually happens is that subconscious mind fires quicker than we consciously do and consciously make decisions. The most common example here is you go off and touch a hot stove when you're really young, and it's a very painful experience. In your mind, you could see all negative, no positive in that situation. That situation experience is going to log in your subconscious mind, and you're going to know subconsciously, you're not even going to consciously think about it. You're going to know throughout the rest of your life not to touch a hot stove. Okay? Now, same in the markets. If we go off and we have negative associations to losing, that's going to be stored in our subconscious mind. And what's going to happen is subconsciously, before we consciously make a decision in the market, split seconds before we consciously do, we're going to have a bias in our mind to try and avoid the pain of losing and seek after the pleasure of winning. And that's what happens subconsciously. And that can taint our decisions, our process-based decisions to just execute on that trading plan. This is why sometimes we override rational thinking in the market to execute on a trade that's part of our plan, or not execute on a trade that isn't part of our plan. And sometimes we can override that rational decision making with an irrational impulse to get into the market, or an irrational instinct to stay out of the market. It's because of that subconsciously stored baggage of negative or positive associations to winning and losing. Okay, so what I teach in the 12-week challenge, which is a little bit deeper than my YouTube videos, is I give the tools to actually be able to go in there and neutralize the subconsciously stored baggage, so you aren't run by those experiences there. You have control over the decisions you make in your life. But when we talk about it in this particular episode, what I would love to share with you is just give you the awareness that there is another layer to our thinking, and it fires quicker. It's the subconsciously stored baggage that we have based on our associations to winning and losing. And really what I try and bang into my clients and my traders and to people, my students who go through the 12-week challenge, is that losing isn't bad and winning isn't necessarily good. They have both. Both outcomes have advantage and disadvantage. Because if you really think about it, when you lose in the market, that gives you the accountability, that gives you the drive, that gives you the fire to go off and refine and make refinements and grow as a trader in the markets. And when we win, sometimes we get complacent and stop doing the things that got us there in the first place and start taking low probability setups, and winning actually stunts our growth at times. So when you learn to see the other side of the equation, what you start to realize is that the outcome has both advantage and disadvantage. And when you really get that into your head on an inculcation, not just an intellectualization, but you go into the 12-week challenge, you learn the principles I teach there, and you really learn to transcend the judgment on the outcome of a position, you give yourself permission to just focus on the process. And you're not run by the subconsciously stored baggage or data you have in your mind that says, I have to avoid losing because it's bad, and I have to seek after winning because it's good, because those are our own incomplete awarenesses of previous experiences in life. And traders do themselves a disservice if they think losing is bad and they think winning is good, because it's going to ultimately take them away from their processes. It's ultimately going to take them away from their trading plan. It's ultimately going to make them act irrationally in the markets as opposed to rationally, based on an edge, based on a trading plan. Where as a trader, you literally just have to execute the setups hundreds, if not thousands of times. Irrespective of the outcome, you need to stick to that process to allow your edge to play out. And I say it over and over, you can't expect consistent results unless you have consistent processes. Now, you can't expect yourself to consistently execute on processes if you're run by this subconsciously stored data that one, a lot of traders don't even know is there, two, traders don't even know how to neutralize and deal with and manage. So it's really important that I want to pass on this awareness in the second part of this mini-series. Right? Initially, we talked about our expectations and managing those. It's also important to recognize that what's our label, or what are our back of the mind subconscious ideas of what winning is and what losing is to us. Do we see them as black and white, bad and good, or do we recognize that they have gradations, and that winning can make us complacent, winning can make us egotistical in a state of pride and complacent and projecting onto the market? Do we see the gradations? Do we see the other side to winning? And when we lose, is losing all bad, or can we see that losing actually holds us accountable to grow? And it points out holes in our routines and our processes and our trading plan that we can go in there and address. It's all about perception at the end of the day. And can we rise above the subconsciously stored data that losing is bad and winning is good, and transcend the labels on those so we give ourselves permission to stick to our plans? Ultimately, I teach the processes, the teachings and the tools to help traders do that in the 12-week challenge. If you're inspired to do that and go deeper with that, I'd encourage you to join there. But in this particular video, I wanted to give you the awareness of the subconsciously stored data. I wanted to give you the awareness that as traders, we can't have this black or white label that losing is bad and winning is good, because that's going to stop us from being successful traders that are executing on the plans and the processes. And I also wanted to pass on the awareness that there are always gradations of gray. Losing isn't all bad, winning isn't all good. They have both advantage and disadvantage. And it's on us to see both sides of the equation so we can transcend the outcome and just stick to our processes as traders. So be incredibly aware that you have a subconscious mind that's firing quicker than you're consciously aware of, and you have control over that. You can go in there and manage it and put tools and processes and plans in place to manage it, and it's incredibly important to do so as a trader. Now, in the next video, we're going to be diving into another extremely important concept, and we're going to be talking about the flip side of losing, which is winning. And I'm going to show you how it's actually our addiction to winning that creates our resentment to losing, and that you have to learn how to manage to win to learn how to manage to lose. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video, where we continue to talk about the psychology of losing in this mini series.